Hello, online crew. How are you? What we're talking about today is a skill that I think, well, I just know that if you have this skill, it can solve a lot of your problems, whether this is in your personal life or business, anything you're doing, your relationships. This is something that is absolutely critical to your success in not only business, but in life. So that's what we're going to share today. So stay tuned for today's video so I can share that with you. So how is everybody? I should have had a drink before I started going live. How is everybody today? Are you well? If you're not familiar with the format of my lives, this video, which is my first live video of the week, is something that I share to do with personal development, personal growth, something to help you be a better version of you. Because I'm presuming if you're here and you're following me, you're probably building a business of some sort. I help home-based business owners bring their business online. So anything from like direct sales, home-based business, network marketing, entrepreneurship, all those kind of things. And you want to leverage social media to bring your business online and attract people to you. So that's what we're here predominantly to talk about. But the most important thing in that equation is you. And whether you have the right sort of mindset and, my right sort of attitude and all those kind of things to be worthy of building a 6 or even 7-figure business. So do you have those skills? And if you don't have those skills, that's what I'm here to help you, with. So this is one of those thought-provoking beginning of the week type videos to get you thinking and hopefully give you some tips or strategies to help you improve being a better version of yourself so you can build the business that you want. If you see me looking up and down a little bit, I'm here on Facebook, my business page, my free group, and YouTube. And I'm over here on Instagram. I've changed my camera. I'm not sure that I like it, but I just want to be able to see your comments over here. So how is everybody? If you're joining me live, please say hello. We've got Beth, we've got Susan, we've got Emma, we've got Cynthia. Thank you for asking about Zach. For those of you that are not aware, unfortunately, my son had a pretty bad motorbike accident on Sunday in our part of the world in Australia, and he got taken by ambulance to hospital. So they thought that he had a broken femur in his leg. Thankfully, no broken bones, but he's pretty bashed up. He's in the lounge. He's home with me. I'm nursing him at the moment, just trying to get him sort of recovering. So he's okay. He's in pretty good spirits. He's just got a bit of healing to do. He's in a lot of pain, but it could have been so much worse. Motorbikes are one of those things that, when you've got boys, some of you may know they can be awesome fun. We've got a family of motorbikes, I guess. My husband, Paul, has grown up with motorbikes. Hence our boys have grown up with motorbikes since they could walk, basically, and Zach likes to race. And he was in a race on Sunday, and, that was the outcome. So pretty scary stuff, but thankfully, he's okay. So thank you for asking, Cynthia. We've got Jade. I'm good, thank you, Emma. Susan, Katie, good to see you on. We've got Hero. Thanks, Susan. Appreciate your thoughts there for Zach. So what's this one skill that I'm sharing with you? Before I get into that, actually, guys, don't forget to join us on Clubhouse tomorrow, where we're talking about planning and things to help you be successful. Those of you in my coaching community, we're talking later this week in your exclusive training regarding how do you collect email leads in different ways. Really important discussion. If you're building only on social media, you are building on borrowed land. It's you don't own anything to do with Facebook or Instagram. So if that's all you're doing, if that's where you're building your audience and your profile and your followers, and that's all you have, then you're building a business on borrowed land. So, making sure you're protected in some way, having a funnel in some way, sort of emails, coaching community, that's what we're talking about later in the week. So I highly recommend that you attend that training. I think the events page has been updated. So if you go to helenmartinonline.com/events, then all the new details for this week is there, including the Clubhouse link, the coaching community link, all those good things. Okay. So what do you think? I want to sort of see what your thoughts are. What's something that you could go in many different directions with this, but what's something that you guys think makes a massive difference in your life when you're dealing with other people, even your relationships? You got a husband, you got a wife, you got kids, you've got people that you deal with maybe in your team, if you've got one, online, you've got an audience. What's one skill? There's lots of skills actually, but what's a really important skill that you need to help people understand you, what you need, what your expectations are? Where am I going with this, guys? Can anybody get it? Anybody know where I'm coming from? Hello, Heather. How are you? Yes, thank you, Beth, for your thoughts for the Zach there. Susan, love Clubhouse and all the information. Oh, the discussions that we have on Clubhouse is absolutely amazing. So make sure you join us tomorrow. Yes, that's exciting training for the coaching community. Hey, Deb, how are you? The ability to pivot and move forward with any situation. Very true. Not exactly where I'm going with this conversation, but that's very true. And Laurie and Susan have both got it. Okay. Communication. Nobody knows. Please hear me out with this. This will make or break you with your relationships, your partner, your husband, your wife, your kids, online following, team members. Communication will make or break you in many ways. Nobody knows what you are thinking. Nobody knows what you're struggling with. Nobody knows what you need unless you tell them, unless you ask questions of what you need. If you're struggling in your business, communicate that to somebody. If you've got a mentor, have a conversation with them saying, I'm not sure if I'm on the right track. What would you recommend? This is what I'm doing. Am I on the right track? You know, what is it? Or I need help with curiosity posts, or I need help with the recruiting funnel. I don't really know how to talk to people on social media. Like business or relationships or even your children, communication is absolutely everything. You can't expect people to know what you're thinking. Same with a partner, like a husband or wife. How often have you got shitty with a partner for doing something that they didn't even know was important to you? Like little things like doing the dishes a certain way or making the bed a certain way or things like that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's communication, but there is communication to complain and there is communication to discuss and resolve. And there is a lot of people that can communicate, but they communicate in a way where they just continually complain. So it's not only communication, it's the way that you communicate. And I'll give you a classic example of a friend of mine. This was a few years ago now, but one of my best friends, all-time best friends for years and years, been in my life for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. So this is going back a bit now, but I invited her to my wedding and she said no. And we live in different states, so I didn't really know. I didn't really think about it any other reason than she just couldn't get there or something like that. A couple of years later, I get a letter in the mail. All this stuff, apparently, all these issues that she had with me, all these things, and that was the reason why she didn't come to my wedding and all this stuff. I didn't even know there was a problem with our friendship. No idea. Just stuff that got conjured up in, her head that was a problem. To me, I didn't even know anything existed, to the point where she didn't come to my wedding because of it. And I'm like, why didn't you send me this letter years ago? Why didn't you pick up the phone if you were feeling like that? And, to me, it was like, oh man, let's deal with this. I was on the phone straight away going, I had no idea. Like, let's talk about this. And, I had it out and had dealt with it. And she said, oh, well, it's easy for you. You've just sort of dealt with it in 5 minutes. I've hung on to this for years. I'm like, I didn't even know it was something that you were hanging on to. I had no idea. So we can hang on to things for years and have issues with people. Have you got issues with family members that goes back years, or people in your business that you've just stopped talking to for one reason or another? Whereas, if you actually had a chat about it, you might be able to resolve it and, everybody moves on. A communication is everything. And the sad part about communication is the world that we are growing up in. because our kids aren't learning how to communicate. Our kids are sitting in the same room with each other, with their phones, talking to each other, text messaging each other, doing Snapchats with each other in the same room. They're not learning how to communicate. And I would love to see what the divorce rate is going to be in years to come, because people don't talk about things anymore. They send them a text message and break up the relationship. Or if you've got something to say and you're scared to confront the person, you send them a message, don't you? So it's easier to send, something through social media and send a message than actually pick up the phone or do at a minimum a voice recording and actually deal with the situation. So communication is a skill that we all need to improve on, and you need to take responsibility for how you feel. And if things aren't going well for you in a particular way, or with somebody in particular, you need to have that conversation rather than stewing on it and potentially stewing on it for years. I don't doubt there's some of you listening to this broadcast or the replay that somebody has come straight to mind for you that you've still got an issue with from years ago. And neither of you have picked up the phone to sort of deal with it. There's probably people that you work with in your team, potentially, that you have issues with. And neither of you have ever been big enough or brave enough to pick up the phone and go, hey, can we talk? Because we're not communicating very well. Or I don't understand what's the reason that you did this. Can you help me understand? And it's the way you communicate. It's not accusing anybody of anything. It's not having a go at anybody about anything. It's asking questions to help you understand. I do this with my kids. Like, they'll do something and I don't, and I'm might be angry or a bit pissed off about it. And so I'll say to them, can you help me understand the reason you made that decision? And I'll get them to talk it through with me rather than yell at them. Yelling gets you nowhere. Aggression gets you nowhere. And unfortunately, when a lot of people face conflict, what's the first thing that a lot of people do? They run away. When things aren't going well in their business, what do? They retreat. They go and hide. So these are the common things that people do in human nature. Like, if your business is not going well, then you just stop building the business and you run away and hide, rather than asking questions and communicate with people saying, I'm struggling, not much is working at the moment, I need to get myself back on track, can you help me? Or communication with loved ones, partners, husbands, wife, kids. Ask questions like, can you help me understand what's going on here? Because I'm struggling to understand, rather than saying, you haven't done the dishes again. Or can't you at least pick up the washing and help me out around here? You know how that conversation goes. You can't complain about something you haven't let people know that you need from them. Communication is everything. Communication to your audience online is everything. Don't talk at people, talk with them. Have a conversation with your audience. Communicate with them as if they're sitting in your lounge room. Ask them questions. Do you feel this way too? Is this relevant to you? Like, have a conversation, communicate with your audience rather than barking at them and just telling them and dictating to them. Am I making sense, guys? Communication is, I love social media, don't get me wrong. It gives us massive opportunities to grow an audience and do all the things that we all want to do with our businesses. But as far as communication goes, I think it's an absolute, let me just say, detrimental to our communication skills, because we just shoot off messages. People say things on social media and through Messenger that they would never say to somebody's face. Look at cyberbullying and kids and teenagers and what they say and do to each other. Half of that they would never do to somebody's face, I'm sure. But through a screen, you know what they call them, the keyboard warriors. There's famous people that have committed suicide because of keyboard warriors. We've had, a few of them in Australia, and I'm sure there's many, overseas in other countries, of people that have been really badly, massively attacked by people on social media. We're all still real people. And the more we can communicate with people and let people know how we're feeling, and I know that there's a lot of you that when you're going through a tough time, it's easier to retreat and not say anything to anybody. But that's when you need to communicate with somebody that you trust even more so they can support you. Does all this make sense, guys? So communication is absolutely essential. You've got to take responsibility to how you feel. If you're not happy, if your business is not going well, if you've got a problem in your relationship or a friendship, be the one that actually takes the initiative to have a conversation about it and deal with it. Because it's the ones that don't, that fester, and then that gets you into all sorts of trouble and probably a lot of stress and angst that you guys just don't need. So just checking in with some comments here over on Facebook. So from Brittany, learning to communicate well has been one of my biggest and most challenging goals. You and many other people, Brittany, communication is not easy for some people. Some people would rather sit and suffer on their own, or not say anything because they don't want to avoid conflict. They want to avoid conflict. Sorry, I should have said. Okay. Joy. Hi, Helen. I appreciate all the helpful info and pray for your son is healing well. Thank you, Joy. If I care enough about the person and our relationship, I will have the difficult conversation. I am not afraid of that. If I don't care enough about the person or relationship, I don't bother. Well, the other thing is that somebody has to be willing to receive. So sometimes you have to make a judgment call of you could try to communicate with somebody, but if they're not listening, it does fall on deaf ears sometimes. So it does depend on the relationship. You're quite right, Joy. And it does depend on whether the other person can actually receive the question or not. That's why it's better to communicate with a question rather than an accusation of some sort. So why did you do that? So something like, can you help me understand why you made the decision to do that? Ask it in a different way to just try to let the person know, I'm trying to understand what's going on here because I don't get it. Rather than saying, what the hell did you do that for? Totally different way of approaching it. Hi, Elena. Good to see you on. How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's a great book. Absolutely. Good resource there. Yep. Had that and finally sorted it out. Was I thinking what I was thinking was completely wrong. It's just crazy. And this is where you can misinterpret things. So unless you go and ask a question, you may be stressing about something that's not actually reality. So that's where we take responsibility for our own communication and our own feelings. If you're feeling left out, if you're feeling like something's wrong, or you're feeling, just something that's not a positive feeling, then ask questions and sort it out quicker. So it's like, what I always say, life is going to throw curveballs at you. You're going to be angry and pissed off and upset at times and not in your best health. And there's going to be various things that go on in your life. And that's okay. You don't need to apologize for that. You've got to deal with what you've got to deal with, but you just don't stay there. It's like issues like that, like Susan, was just mentioning. She had that and sorted it out. She was actually thinking something completely different than what the situation was. But unless you actually ask somebody a question, hey, I'm a little bit concerned about, am I reading this right or wrong or whatever? What are your thoughts? I don't know whether my mind's going crazy or whether there's something going on here. I just want to check because, I may not be thinking straight. Whatever it is, take that responsibility and deal with it and get it over and done with. So you're not stressing about it. If you hang on to stuff like that, you will cause yourself undue stress. Absolutely. It's not necessary. Cindy, communication is the key. How you talk to other people is important. So important. Not dealing, that's right, Laurie. Not dealing with issues is like, planting a cancer. Things fester and people fester. And, something that started this small could end up being that big, and it really doesn't need to be. So if you're not happy, if something's not going your way, if you think the relationships aren't what they should be big enough and ugly enough to have a conversation with whoever you need to have a conversation with, even in your own relationships with your own husbands and wives and kids and stuff like that. Just say to them, look, I'm feeling this. I'm not sure if this is justified or not, but I'm just trying to understand, why. Or, something that might be important to you that's not important to somebody else, and that causes issues. You need to communicate that. And so this is something that's important to me. And we get this a lot with this business, with, partners, husbands and wives and stuff like that. You're doing this thing, and a lot of people don't come on the ride for you. So, you've got to get to a stage where you're like, I understand that you don't necessarily like me doing this, but this is something that's actually really important to me. So I just love your support. So it's just communicating. Okay, I get that you don't necessarily, understand it, but it's actually something that's really important to me. So I just love a little bit of support. That kind of conversation. Help communicate what it is that is important to you so other people understand it. Yes, Heather, I agree. It can be very hard to step up and talk about things with others not even aware. And that's where you come in with that question. This is what I'm thinking and feeling. I'm not sure if this is right, but I just want to help. And, can you help me understand so, I can sort out my own feelings? Like, just ask questions respectfully rather than accusing somebody of doing something. Does that make sense? So it's the way you approach it that is really important. Cindy, one of my biggest lessons was to learn how to communicate. It was so confrontational, and learn quickly that people will run most times in that case. So as long as you're communicating the best way you can't be faulted for doing the right thing. There are people that will not listen to you. I've had that, just recently. There are people that I've tried to talk to, and all I get is defensive, and they just won't even listen. No matter how you say it or how you try to help them see your perspective, there are some people that are just so closed off that they just won't even hear you or want to know, or if they're slightly thinking you're attacking them or questioning them in some way, they're biting back. Like, you can only do what you can do. You can't change people. So just do the best for you. Take responsibility for your feelings, but do not take any responsibility for anybody else's feelings. That's not your problem. Your problem is what you're feeling. So if you've got issues and you're upset or you're confused or whatever it is, take responsibility for that and have conversations with the appropriate people regarding that. But don't take responsibility for how somebody reacts to that. Okay, somebody else's reaction has got nothing to do with you. That's their world, that's their head. You can't be faulted for not trying. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, I love the question and how you ask it. So it's just trying to open that dialogue to, can you help me understand, especially with kids, rather than screaming at them and yelling at them, what the hell did you do that for? You ask them, can you just share with me what was going through your head to make the decision to do that? I'm just trying to understand. Just trying to understand. Like, it's so much more easier to receive on the other side than just yelling at people. And the same way that, in business, accusing people of things doesn't get you anywhere. So if you can learn to communicate in a way that is asking questions to help you understand, then that's the best way to go go around it. And for those of you that do have children, and I have teenage boys, just please encourage them to learn to communicate and talk to your kids, because they're not learning it. They're not learning it at school. They've all got phones. It's going to get worse. And they're going to end their marriages via text message, probably. Like, I do fear for the future and working things out, because they're losing those communication skills that we were brought up with when we didn't have technology in our fingertips. So the communication is getting less and less and less and less the more we are glued to technology, which is really sad. But it actually improves your life, improves your relationships. It'll improve your business. It'll just improve everything when you learn how to communicate better. Okay, so just try a little bit harder. Next time you have a conflict with somebody, try to communicate with them and ask them, the understanding of it. And if you are feeling frustrated with somebody or something, business or husband or wife or kids or whatever, take responsibility for that and try to communicate through the situation rather than getting angry, rather than running away and sulking, or rather than avoiding it. Because when you avoid things, they just fester. And then you can end up not talking to somebody for 10 years because you both had an issue and no one was big enough and ugly enough to, deal with the situation. You know what I'm talking about. I'm sure there's some of you that have got situations like that. So, yeah, something with my kids. Awesome, Brittany. Understanding emotions and communicating them. And often, something I've, not so much now that they're a little bit older, but younger, when they would do stupid things, I would ask them, what do you think your punishment should be for this? Because there has to be a consequence, because that behavior just isn't acceptable. And more often than not, they would come up with a punishment that was harsher than what I would give them. But it's a discussion, and you communicate and you ask. You don't go, yeah, no. And now you're banned from technology for a month, and then they get all pissed off with you, and it just ends in more angst. Like, have a discussion and communicate around these things rather than, yelling at people. I had a discussion with my son. I'll just finish off here. Something happened that I was not happy about. And it's not anything my boys are doing, but there's some kids that they're hanging around with that are doing things that I don't think are acceptable. But my son actually told me, and I don't know about you guys as parents, but I actually praised my son and I said to him, I'm really not happy about that situation, and I don't want you to be surrounded by that. You're too young to be exposed to that kind of thing, and spoke about the consequences of that kind of thing. I'm dancing around the edges a bit deliberately here. But I actually said to him, thank you so much for being honest with me. And I actually praised him for telling me what was going on, because we need to keep that communication open. I want to know what's going on in their lives, and they're teenagers. They're going to be around kids that are trying, alcohol and drugs and things like that. It's just, I can't avoid it. It's going to be there in their life, whether it's them or the people around them. But if I'm communicating with them all the time and saying, thank you so much for being so open with me, I just want you to tell me about these things. So if they come up, I can tell you how to handle them and whatever. Just that, keeping that communication open is so, so, so important. So, communication in general, whether it's relationships, your partner, kids, business as well, take some responsibility with where you are at. Where you're at in your business is a total direct reflection of either how valuable you are on social media if you're building online, or the action that you have and haven't taken. So if you're not where you want to be with your business, what questions do you need to ask? What do you need to find out? What do you need to concentrate on? Like, take responsibility for that in your business as well. Okay. All right. I'm going to leave it there. I've talked long enough, but I hope this is, a helpful message for you to just really think about how you communicate with people and how you can improve your communication skills with people, and how to, bring up that conversation when you do need to communicate with people and it's a tough situation. You're better to communicate than just, bottle it all up and not say anything. Okay. So join me tomorrow back here for, we'll get back into the sort of social media training, but I do really enjoy these videos at the beginning of the week where I talk about something to do with personal growth, personal development, because it really is the success of who you are as a person, not only in your businesses, but in life. Who are you? Are you nice to be around? Do people look up to you? Are you encouraging? Are you inspiring? Do you have the right mindset to build a 6-7-figure business? All of that is up to you. Nothing you can learn regarding social media is overcome all of that. So do the work that you need to do on yourself to be, the proud owner of an amazing business. All right, guys. So thank you for joining me today, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Oops.